Hello and welcome again to another episode of Chatting with Slava the Jordanian. I'm your host, STJ. Today's episode is very, very special because I get to talk about my best friend, Tiny Ekram. She is my mother-in-law. She was my anchor, my tribal support in the United States. She is my American mother, my Egyptian mother, and of course, she's the one who got me together with my Egyptian darling, Dr. Slava Abdelrehim, who I ended up marrying and I've been married to for the past almost 33 years in August this year. So, unfortunately, Tiny Ekram, we lost her after 7 or 8 years battle with Alzheimer's. She passed away in 2016 at age, I believe she would have been 86. It was very, very sad. Of course, time for us. And having my husband, Um-Ihab, being the only child, I felt even more sad. For him, of course, losing his mother without the support of siblings around, and being a Egyptian American immigrant in this country with incidences and episodes like these of losing a loved one. It's very important to have family around you. He did have extended family in Maryland, and they're amazing. I am fortunate to be one of 5. I'm number 2 of 5. So when my dad passed away, at least I could just fall back on the support and the empathy and the nostalgia of my siblings. Those are my immediate family in the United States. Everybody else, extended family, is obviously in Jordan. So Um-Ihab, Tiny Ekram, as a lot of you, especially if you're watching and you're listening, known her as, she was a very, very special person to me and to a lot of you and to a lot of many. So today we are gonna dive a little bit deeper into her beautiful personality and her unlimited mindset, truly unlimited mindset. And when I met her spring of 1990, I fell in love with her personality. I fell in love with her energy. I fell in love with her kindness and with her big heart, generosity, welcoming, tolerance. She was an amazing, amazing human being. Now, a little bit background, as I was told, Tiny Ekram, or as I called her, Um-Ihab, she barely finished high school education. She was born and raised in Shubra, Cairo. 80% of the neighborhood in Shubra are Christian Egyptians. And most of the schools in that district were Christian schools, whether French or English Christian schools. So she went to a French Christian all-girls school, so her native tongue is Arabic and her second language was French. So she was the eldest of 9 to a very, very loving, I heard, parents. Her dad, she was his first child and she meant the world to him. And she didn't get married until she was, I think, 35, if I'm not mistaken. And she was an entrepreneur. She didn't finish high school. She hit the ground running in the fashion industry. She was an assistant designer for a while in Egypt. She learned how to sew. She learned how to design patterns, cut patterns, and put dresses together. Then she created her own local business. And her work was so good that most of her clientele were the rich of the rich in Cairo, in Shubra, al-Muhandisin. And she used to tell me a lot of the stories as she visits some of the saraya. Saraya means the mansions of the rich Egyptians, to meet with the women and the matriarch of those families to design their beautiful 1950s dresses. And she had a very keen eye for measurements. And I think my husband, Dr. Ihab, that's where he gets it from. I think he gets passion for numbers from his dad, but he gets the keen eye for measurements from his mom. So she created her own business. She had a couple of employees. And unfortunately, with the 1952, when the country was nationalized by Abdel Nasser, that's when the whole immigration process started. And they came to the United States on Thanksgiving 1970 to Jersey City, New Jersey. And I had the pleasure and I had the blessings to really be part of her life the last probably 20 years, because I met her in 1990 and she passed 2016. And not even that, I lived with them when I was in dental school for a while until Ihab, or Dr. Ihab, finished his PhD at UC Davis in California. And those moments are very, very precious and very valuable to me, because as we know, when your loved one is gone, all you have is the memory of them. So, not to be too nostalgic, since this episode is all about her, and since this series has been built on storytelling, I am very grateful to have a piece of her in my life, my Egyptian darling, Dr. Ihab. So he's here with us today to shed some light on some of the stories pre-Slava. And then I would definitely add my own version of the stories, that the intimate moments that I had with her. And just to learn how an amazing female Egyptian immigrant that came to the United States left everything she knew behind and left everybody she loved behind as a sacrifice in order to give her only child the best shot at life of freedom, life of entrepreneurship, life of higher education, and for just better life in general. So Ihab, I have a lot to say about your mom. As you know, she was a very, very special person to me, and it was a big loss for me. And I don't think I ever got over the void, or I would ever get over the void that she left in my life. But fortunately, like I said, and that's life, is we have so much memory and so many stories that I hope we will get to have enough time to share with our audience today. So I just want this episode to be a lot of levity, a lot of entertainment, a lot of laughs, because I'm sure she's watching from high above, and I want her to be happy with how we are going to present her to the world.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
AI is changing the game of business. Will you be on the winning team? I'm Jordan Wilson, the host of the Everyday AI podcast, and your coach to help you learn the X's and O's of AI. Artificial intelligence isn't just a new player in the game, it's a new sport altogether. So if you don't quickly put AI into play, your competitors will run up the score. I've spent my whole life building winning teams, from coaching basketball to working with big players like Nike and Jordan Brand. My next move? Helping you win with Everyday AI. Listen wherever you get your podcasts or on everydayaipodcast.com. Let's tap into AI together and put points on the board.
All right. So I'll start by saying one of my favorite stories is one of the first stories that I remember. I was going to like Arabic and Islamic school on Sundays, I believe, during the school year, and then during the summers, I'd go 5 days a week. So that was something my dad required for me to do. Something I didn't want to do, but I did it. And one of the times, I think I was in the Arabic class, and I just wasn't getting it, maybe. And the teacher took me to the front, and he hit me on the hand with a ruler. Okay, and it left these marks. Okay, and I got home, and my mom goes, "How was the school?" I said, "It was all right." And she goes, "What's that on your hand?" I said, the teacher hit me on the hand with a ruler. She goes, "Why did he do that?" And I said, "I don't know. I just maybe wasn't understanding something, and he got mad at me." She goes, "He's not supposed to do that. Only we're allowed to discipline you." She went in the next time I went to the class. She pulled him out of the class. And this is very like unorthodox for a woman in our culture to pull a man out of a class and start yelling at him. So she pulls him out of the class and starts to yell at him and tell him, "You don't touch my son ever. If you need to discipline him, you let me know and I'll take care of it." So it was funny was and the guy wasn't very nice before that. Ever since that time when she talked to him, he was really nice to me. Very nice. So I thought it was like really interesting. So I don't know, I think she got to the guy because he was like a completely different person ever since she talked to him. And he was like almost like really like, "Oh, is everything okay?" Like asking me if things are good as we were going through the classes. I'm like, "Yeah, everything's fine." It was interesting how she went in and that mindset of how you wouldn't expect somebody who is an Arab woman to go do that. That's not typical. Usually the father would go do that. And I know my dad wouldn't have done it because he would have probably said, "Well, you deserve it." But my mom wasn't going to stand for that. So she did it. And so that was kind of one of my first stories I remember.
Well, I'm not surprised, Dr. Ihab. Knowing your mom, of course, I don't know her as long as you do, but I heard so many stories by your dad, so many stories by you, so many stories by her neighbors and all her friends that she knew. And what I loved about your mom is what you see is what you get. Total transparency, no filter whatsoever. And I think a lot of people, the majority of people loved that about her, loved how innocent she is and how righteous she is. She used to tell me, "Al-haq haq wa zulm haram." Basically, right is right and injustice is a sin. And I always admired that about her. And what's fascinating about your mom is I knew she did not even have a full high school education, but her innate ability to go through life, the wisdom that came out of her, I'm dumbstruck by it sometimes. And I look at her, it's like, where did this come from? Because she's a type of person, as she told me, before she married your dad, or before even the idea of marriage, that it got introduced to her. She didn't never want to get married. She wanted to be a free bird, very independent, very, very feminist. She believed in women. They can do, anything and everything. She traveled a lot. I think you can correct me if I'm wrong. I think she went to Luxor and Aswan without your dad.
Oh, yeah.
I don't
She
think
did all
your
that.
dad traveled Egypt as much as your mom traveled Egypt. I think your mom been to Palestine, actually. She's been to Jerusalem.
And she did go, actually, yeah.
And your dad never left Egypt. I mean, I don't think your dad ever left Cairo other than the Mansoura.
No,
but
he didn't go. Yeah, he never went to Luxor or Aswan or anywhere like that.
No, I don't think, because when we used to sit together and she'll tell me all these stories and she'll show me pictures on the beach of, she went to the Dead Sea, she went to Sina, she went to, that was in the 50s, in the 50s and before you were born, early 60s.
Yeah.
And the idea of she wanted to be an entrepreneur, you know, a business owner woman. And I asked her, and I said, why did it take you so long to get married? And she said, because marriage wasn't really a priority. She said, I was happy with my life. I was living in my father's apartment, and we saw that apartment building when we went to Shubra. And literally, it was across the street from where your dad was living. And there were neighbors, so everybody knew everybody. But she told me that, honestly, I did not see the need to be married. I have so many friends, male and female friends. She, like I said, she used to go on trips all the time, and she made her own money. She led her own life, and she was the leader of her destiny, really. And I guess her dad put a lot of pressure on her to get married. And as you know, in our culture is, marriage is half of your faith. The first part of your faith is when you're young and you practice Islam and you learn Islam and you learn your duty. And then the second half of you, كمل دينك, to complete your faith, is by recognizing marriage. And that was important for her dad, because her dad noticed that she's the eldest of 9. Everybody was getting married except her. And he's like, hey, what's going on, you know? And I think he wanted to trump a lot of she said there was a lot of rumors were going on in the neighborhood. You know, it was very, very traditional gender role expectation at those times, especially in that neighborhood. So finally, she broke under pressure and she agreed to meet the suitors. And I asked her one time, and I said, "Why Um-Ihab, my father-in-law, Muhammad Abdelrehim, Allah yarhamu wa yahsin ilayh?" And she said, "You know what? All the suitors that came through, كانوا مبهدلين." It means that they were just not put well together. And I said, what do you mean? She goes, for example, when Muhammad came to propose, he was the only suitor that had a nice watch and did not have a hole in his shoe.
Yeah. My dad always wore suits back then too. He was always
everybody wore suits. I said, so not having a hole in the shoe. She goes, of course, I was a woman of fashion. I was in the fashion industry, and I had my reputation to protect, and there's no way I would have married somebody with a hole in his shoe. But also, she told me that if a guy coming in to propose and he's not well put together, he was not even thoughtful enough to put the best, thing that he has at home, can you imagine how he's going to look like after getting married? Basically, she said, as a suitor, you're supposed to look your best. And if you're not looking your best, how am I going to get married? So she did have very high standards. And to be honest, for fairness, your dad, I never smelled a foul sweat smell of him. I never seen him so dirty. I never seen him disorganized. I didn't see him in chaos. He was so militant and he was so organized, so clean. Even after like 2 shifts in the yard at Hoboken in the train station, he always came back clean. And I'm like, how do you even manage to do that? And I think that was with her innocence, that was the moment of admiration that she had for your dad, and when she met him. And he's very charismatic. Your dad had a lot of presence. And then I would say, I'm trying to remember, there was one really funny story. I was told this story later because I was young, and obviously they're telling me the story when I was young, I would not have understood it. So my mom is in New York City, and I want to say she was in the Macy's in New York City on 33rd or 34th Street. And she's online, and she's telling me this story, right? She says, I'm online, and I've got some stuff in my hand I'm going to pay for. And she feels this like tug on her bag, on her purse. And she looks over and she sees this guy's hand
inside her purse. Okay. So what he's trying to do, he's trying to pickpocket her, right? So she grabs his hand, and I mean, she locked on. The guy couldn't get off. Like, he was trying to pull his hand away, and she had his hand like this, and he was trying to pull away, and she was screaming, police, police. And the guy had, stuff in his hand from my mom's bag, and she grabbed it from him. And then he had other things in his other hand, like money. So she took the money from the other hand, and she was screaming, police, police, the whole time. And the guy's finally, I think he broke loose and he got away. So my mom, puts the stuff in her bag, her purse, her little a bag with the money and stuff, and puts everything in there. And she goes up to the counter, the cashier, and she pays. And then on her train ride back to Jersey, she's looking in her bag and she's checking to see if anything's missing. And she pulls out her wallet, and she sees, that's the money she has in there. And then she had the other money that she had stuffed in there. So she counted the money, and she ended up with more money than she originally started with that morning. And what had happened was, I believe the guy was pickpocketing people around on that line, maybe, or somewhere else in the store. And I think the money she took from him was other people's money. So, which was really funny. And I was like, I can't believe the guy didn't do anything. She goes, he's not going to do anything. And that's something my mom was one person that wouldn't take like crap from anybody. She was always like straight with her friends, very funny, but wouldn't take any kind of funny business with her. So that ended up, and my dad was like completely shocked that this all happened. And she goes, yeah, I just, I ended up with more money than I started with, which was kind of fortunate for her, and unfortunate for the guy. I don't know if they ever caught him or what, but she ended up pretty in a happy place. She wasn't. It's funny, she wasn't ever scarred by the whole thing, or it didn't bother her in any way that she had to go see a therapist or anything. And she just went on with her life. And I believe if this incident would have happened again, she would have done it the same way. She wouldn't have let the guy run away. She would have stopped him. It's one of those ideas in Arab culture that if she had a slipper on, she would have taken it off and started smacking him with it. But she had her shoes on, so she didn't have any slippers. So he got away lucky, I think, without getting beat up. So that was a really funny story, and we've got some more, but that was one of my favorites.
Boy, she was something else. She was determined. Yeah. She was decisive. I think she was more decisive than your dad.
Oh,
honestly.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
She knew exactly what she wanted. She was strong. Mentally, emotionally, she was strong. And it's funny that when I lived with them the year or 2 years in dental school, she used to get all grossed out about me being in New York City and then being in school, coming back from dental school after gross anatomy lab. Probably she smelled all the formaldehyde on me and stuff. So, and I remember I just moved in with them because it was cheaper. I commuted from New Jersey to New York. It was cheaper for me to live with them because New York was so expensive. And the moment I walked through the door, she used to say, "Khush istahammi, go take a shower." And I was more the American way. I took a shower in the morning before I went to school. And she's the one who got me into the habit of taking my shower before bedtime. And until this day, I only take my showers at night. And it doesn't matter how late it is. It doesn't matter how long we are in Boston or even after flying in late night, midnight, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, I have to take my shower before I go to bed. But that's something that she implanted in me. And she said it to me once and it stuck. And I think because, of course, the from the traditional tribal connection, you listen to the mother figure. And I never argued with her. It's like, yes, ma'am, and but it's amazing somebody as a stranger has that impact on me, as if she mothered me, like as if she gave birth to me, which she didn't, but she had that presence. Your mom had this beautiful presence about her that nobody could get upset from anything that came out of her mouth, and whether if it's offensive or confrontational or too honest or without filter. People just gave her the benefit of the doubt, and they said, oh my God, you're just so funny. Oh my God, you're so right. Oh my God, of course, I'll do that. So she had that effect on people. And as her child, Ihab, did you see that growing up, or you just got to that kind of like conclusion after the fact, after she passed, or after she got sick, or after even she got a little bit older?
So I want to first ask you something. So are you saying that you took showers in the morning before my mom?
Yes. So when I was living, of course, part of my cultural assimilation in the United States, I thought that's what everybody did. They took a shower first in the morning before I went to school. That's what I did. That's what everybody did, right? So, at Case Western, I did undergrad. And when I was in dental school, the first year at NYU Dental, I lived in the dorms in Manhattan and on First Avenue. First and 24th, and of course I took my shower first thing in the morning. Not until I lived with your mom, and I think either I was living with your mom or I was just visiting from dental school. Mm-hmm. And the moment I walked through the door, she said, "Khush istaham, go take a shower." Yeah. But I'm not dirty. She goes, "No, you came from school, shari, wasakhat al-shari, the dirt of the street and the contamination and pollution. Just it's cleaner. Before you eat dinner, just take a shower." That stuck with me. Yeah, you surprised?
I had the same. No, I'm not surprised at all, because I had the same situation. Not that specifically, but I'll be coming back from soccer, and she'd be like, I'm not like, there's no mud on me, right? I played soccer, sweating a little bit. She'd always like, go take a shower, and I'm like, I don't want to take a shower now. Yeah. She's like, no, go take a shower now. I'm like, well, I don't really want to take a shower now. I can take it later. Yeah. And then it's like, she finally says, and you push these kind of in the way that and I finally go take a shower. And it feels good, right? If you take a shower after like working out and soccer, things like that, which she was kind of right, but I wasn't dirty in a way that was visible, kind of like with you, if you weren't visibly dirty from school, you might have smelled like formaldehyde, but if you weren't in gross anatomy, you probably didn't. But she's probably thinking you were in somebody's mouth and something got on you.
Yeah, I think she got grossed out by the whole.
She always was.
Yeah, dental clinic, because I remember I'm sorry, it's so funny. When your dad got sick with the Hep C virus.
Yeah.
And, he was, poor thing, he was giving himself the injection himself. I remember his thighs been black and blue from the needles. She refused to wash his clothes. And I said, so one day we're sitting, I think it was a Saturday or Sunday, your dad was doing double shift in Hoboken, and we're watching TV, and she goes, oh my God, I have to do Muhammad's laundry. And I said, oh, don't worry about it, I'll do it. She goes, no, don't touch it. And I said, what are you talking about? And she goes, it's contaminated. And I said, why is it contaminated? She goes, because he has the virus. And I said, Um-Ihab. That's what I called her. And I said, he has Hep C. It's unless he bleeding out on his clothes, and your dad's always been clean, it's fine. So she's like, no, don't touch it. I'm just going to have him do his own laundry. And she made him do his own laundry. The poor guy was on not metformin, but interferon, double shifted. And he used to come home. She refused to do his laundry because she was so like almost hypochondriac about I'm going to get sick, and germaphobe, I'm going to get sick. And I said, Um-Ihab, the poor guy, he works really hard. Let's just do his laundry. She goes, no, I forbid it. You don't touch it. I don't touch it. Let him do his own. He can contaminate himself. And I try to sit down with her and explain to her how the disease, the Hep C disease and stuff. And sometimes she'll be very nervous even washing the utensils and the plates that he ate with during dinner time. So I'll take it from her. She used to be so grossed out about it. But, that's just her within her own world, within her own understanding of what disease is. She conducted herself shamelessly. She just didn't care. She had such a high level of confidence, high level of self-awareness, and self-assurance that I don't really care. What I believe, my belief system is telling me this is the right thing to do, and I'm just gonna go with it, kind of thing. But so I met her, when she was in her 60s, early 60s.
Yeah.
Has she, all through your childhood, was she like that the whole time?
With respect to like being clean and stuff, or
not about being clean, like she had her own belief system and she will not deviate from that. Yeah.
I think so. She had her own belief system. She's not going to deviate. And it's funny because, again, in Arab culture, and this is the part that's very different with my mom. You'd expect a little bit more submissiveness from the spouse, the mom, the wife. But my mom was the opposite.
Yeah.
She wasn't like that. And I think that's why she would clash with my dad. It was hysterical. They were serious, but I thought it was funny. I don't know if anybody has ever seen the Costanzas, Frank Costanza, on the show, the Seinfeld show, the parents. My parents, when they start going at it, it's just like if you watch the Costanzas on Seinfeld, you'll understand those are my parents. Hilarious. And she had her own mindset. She wasn't going to change it ever. And my dad tried. I swear to you, my dad tried to but she wasn't going to deviate from anything. And you always talk about unlimited mindset. That's hers. She was unlimited, and she's gonna do it her way or not do it at all. And that's her personality. And she was a strong, independent woman, as Arab woman from that time period. Remember, she's back from like the 50s and we talk about the strong, independent women now currently makes sense, but somebody growing up from that time period, looking back, it's them being strong, independent is very unique. And I would say even in the United States, in the 50s and 40s, I don't think the women were independent as they were post 80s, 70s or 80s, right? Mm-hmm. In that 50s or 60s time period, I would say, you still had the housewife at home and the husband worked, but my mom was very different in that way. She was going to do it her way. So she ended up, for the first couple of years we were here when I was young, she was working and assistant designer in New York City. She worked with Norma Kamali, very big designer in New York, and she was really good. And there was one time, I'm saying Norma Kamali because I went one time to how do I say it? It was like a fashion show, like a small one. And my mom had made some dresses, and I was there, and I'm standing, and I'm backstage, right? I'm not actually sitting with the people up front. I'm backstage. I'm with my mom, and she's, helping the ladies change. The models change, and they go out on the runway, they do their thing, come back, and she's setting up another model to go out, and then I think there's like a couple of models, and they're all switching outfits, right? And I'm standing there, and I believe I was in, how old was I? I'm trying to remember now. I was young. I don't think I was in high school even yet. I was in grade school, and I'm sitting there and I'm watching these women undress and dress and undress, and I'm sitting there like this. Wow, this is wild, so I'm like, okay, wow. So my mom, she's gonna go to talk to the designer, and I'm kind of behind her. She goes, no, you can't go in. I'm like, why can't I come in with you? She's like, she's lounging in there in her lingerie. She's chilling out, lingerie maybe. She's maybe not dressed. You can't go in. And I'm like, okay. So I just stood outside this door like this, looking around, waiting for her. And she comes out. She goes, good thing you didn't go in, because she was not ready for anybody to go in except me, because she's the only one that was allowed to go talk to the designer at any time. So that was the one time I knew like she was very independent. And I believe that was her last job in fashion. I think it was her last job completely. After that, she just kind of stayed home and took care of the house. But yeah, that was a really neat thing that you kind of go and you get to see your mom in action, because I never got to see my dad in action, except like he's maybe checking the brakes on the trains. But I've never seen him fix the brakes or anything like that. I was never with him in the specific yard area where they're actually doing the mechanical work. I don't think anybody was allowed there. But if he's inspecting brakes on the actual train that's about to go out, I could see him doing that. But my mom was, she's making dresses, and she's working with the models and things like that. So yeah, she was a really big deal back then. And she really enjoyed it. But in the end, she kind of stayed home to take care of me, because, there was no real, nobody really to watch me. And my dad worked on opposite shifts. So if, my mom was gone, my dad's gone at the same time or different times. So they never crossed paths, and I was always in school. And when I came home, there was nobody there, and my dad was working through the next day. So finally they said, okay, let's make sure because there was no after school where we lived in Jersey City. There was no after school like they have now. You can stay after school, do things, but there was no after school activities then. Jersey City didn't have any kind of any sports. I remember I believe basketball was the only one. Other than that, there's no baseball fields or nothing like that. It's a city, so you don't have any of that stuff. So after school activities, after school sports, there wasn't much of it. But anyway, she ended up staying home, and she took care of me. And I learned a lot from her, obviously, of my independence, which bothered my dad mostly, because he would always say that my first words out of my mouth is either no, or the next word would be why. Yeah. Those are the two words. Like if he were to say something to me, I would say no, why. And to him, whatever he says is supposed to like be the word of God, basically. You gotta listen to your dad. But I don't know. I learned that independence, and I'm very inquisitive. I ask a lot of questions, and I learned that specifically from my mom. And that was and it helped me out a lot later on in life when I got to my PhD in graduate school and college and things like that. But yeah, oh yeah.
I think the entrepreneurship mindset that you have comes from Um-Ihab, your mom, and your passion for numbers and science comes from your dad. That's just my personal observation. I've been with you longer than I've been with my parents.
Yeah.
And because I lived with your parents, I can see as you conduct yourself through life, certain parts of them comes out, and I see you as you're dealing with people, conducting yourself like I said, through life. And I'll be able to say, oh, that was Um-Ihab, that was Um-Ihab, that was Um-Ihab, that was Um-Ihab. I can tell that your dad is coming out, your mom's coming out. It's fascinating because you're the only child. But one of, it's almost like you got all the gene pool in one, put all your gene pool in one person, where I'm one of 5. The gene pool got divided into 5 kids. But she had a very unique wisdom about her for somebody, like I said, never finished high school, but also before she ended up settling down and getting married and having children. Like I said, she was an entrepreneur. She was a very, very successful business owner. But unfortunately, she had to dissolve that. I remember her nostalgically talking about how she had to shut down her business in order to come to the United States. And that was her pride and joy. She was very, very passionate. She's very artistic. Like I said, she had that measured eye. She can look at you and give you your measurement, your bust, your waist, your hips, and she can make you an outfit. She did it with me so many times, which is fascinating. But, the couple of stories that she told me when we used to have coffee together and sit down on a Saturday when your dad was working overtime. And, I just wanted to know her, how come you don't have kids anymore? She goes, well, she had the thyroid issue, and she ended up with synthroid, and I think they removed part of her thyroid gland, and that messed up her cycle, so she couldn't have kids anymore. But the fascinating story is at some point you kept asking her, Mom, I want a sibling, I want a brother, I want a sister, and she couldn't explain to you that I cannot have more children. Yeah. So she sat you down. I think you were like 4 or 5 years old. So she sat you down and figured out a way how to convince you or to have you change your mind about having a sibling. And the way she explained it to you, she said, okay, I'll make you a deal. If I get you a brother or a sister, I just want to make sure that you are ready to share your bed, to share your toys, to share your food with that brother or sister. And she told me after that day, you never asked her for another brother and sister.
Yeah, how cool. I think it was the sharing the toys thing. I bet you that's what it was.
So she said that. Yeah, because she knew you better than anybody else, that it would be so hard, you being the only child for such a long time. And how are you going to deal? It's not the what and the why. We understand what you want. You want a sibling. Why you want a sibling? Because you're bored. But how are you going to have a sibling? And when she explained to you the how, what reality is going to be after having a brother and sister, you completely change your mind. Just like another story with you kept touching, when she was cooking, you kept touching the stove and the burners, and she was so afraid that you're going to burn yourself one day. So when she talked to your pediatrician, he said that, well, back in the day, he said that just light up a match, blow up the match, and then touch his hand with a match and tell him this is exactly what's going to feel like if you touch the burner or the stove. And she did that. And she said after that moment, Ihab will stand feet away from the oven. And the funny thing is, when we're baking and the oven is on and I open the oven, you are so like you're standing feet away from that oven, and you're like having the mittens and the towel, and you're ready. So afraid that you're gonna get burned, Slava, you're gonna get burned. It's like, Ihab, it's fine. But it's funny how her presence and her strong personality got you to change your belief system about so many things. Until this day, you still have the remnants of it. And that's amazing, being a female immigrant coming from, the other side of the world to the United States, not knowing how to speak English. How do you relate to the new culture, to new society? So she had to fabricate her own way to explain things to you in order for you not to be confused.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you a really, really funny story. This one I remember. I want to say either I was my last year or two in high school, or maybe my first year or two in college. We were going to a friend's place, And I'm like, and I didn't like to go to any Arab friends' homes. I just didn't like it. When as I got older, I just wanted to spend time with my friends. But my parents were like, we're going over their house. They invited us over for dinner, and I'm like, okay. So I'm like, all right. So I'm just sitting there getting ready, waiting, and I saw my dad eating. I'm like, so I went to him. I'm like, what are you doing? We're gonna go to dinner. You guys told me to come with you, and he's like, well, I'm eating because I'm just, I'm not really big on the food where we're going. And I'm like, well, then why are we going? He's like, well, they invited us. I'm like, what does that mean? Well, we got invited. And my mom was yelling at me like, just get ready. Don't worry about it. So, okay. And only my dad ate, right? So I'm like, okay. And I'm hungry, right? And I'm like, all right. So then we go to their house, and I'm sitting there, and we get mahshi, which is grape leaves stuffed with rice and ground beef. They serve me that, and I bit into it, and the rice was raw, and I'm like, the heck, and so my mom is funny because I wasn't going to say anything, but and I'm telling you, this table was full of people. I'll never forget it. I mean, there was like a couple of families there, and I'm sitting there, and my mom she goes, hey, this rice is uncooked. What's wrong with you? She looks at the host and starts to kind of rip into her. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. And she's like, Hag Ekram, and like the host is like saying that to her. And I'm like, and she's like, you gotta cook the rice. And I'm like, wow. And everybody on the table is laughing. Even the host starts laughing. And what was really neat was she was a really good friend of my mom's too. Yeah. And everybody there, we were all friends, right? Like all family friends. And they knew that my mom was not being malicious or mean in any way. She was just trying to have her point go across like, hey, you got to let this rice cook. And I don't remember if this was the same time or not, but it might be a different time. There's another incident. We went to another house. I believe it might have been the same time, but we were sitting there, and the person had made a turkey. Actually, it was a Thanksgiving. It was Thanksgiving. It was a different time. It was a turkey, and the turkey looked amazing. And we're sitting there, and usually in Arabic culture, you stuff the turkey with like rice and things like. It's not stuffed with the bread or the breadcrumbs. And so we're pulling out the stuffing, and then all of a sudden, and my mom was right there too. I couldn't believe she was right there. And the host pulls out, and she comes out, and there's a giblet bag with the paper wrapped around it, right? And it's like, my mom's like, wait a second, you didn't pull out the giblet bag? You didn't wash the inside of the turkey? She's like, I thought the turkey was clean. And they got into this whole thing, her and the host. It was hilarious. And again, a lot of people sitting at the table cracking up. Again, there's nothing wrong with it. The giblets were all cooked, obviously. Everything was cooked. And it was no harm, no foul, all right? And we ate the turkey, and we ate the stuffing. Everything was fine. And my mom's like, Allah, you got to make sure this is clean next time. You got to wash out the turkey from the inside, so you'll know there's a giblet bag when you clean it. And it's like, yeah. Wow. But yeah, it was those two incidents, hilarious. And again, the hosts were not in any way hurt. Their feelings weren't hurt. They knew my mom was, very a very kind person. She wasn't being malicious and didn't want to put them on the spot. But it was just a funny thing. And my mom was always very funny. There's a lot of levity in her conversations with people. So that was a really good one. That was really, really funny, those two stories. I luckily I was old enough to remember those. Those were really good.
I was actually there at the turkey.
You were the turkey one? Oh my
I
God.
was there.
Oh my God.
I almost snorted my food because to my right, your dad was ahead of the table because I think
Yeah.
that family, their dad passed away a long time ago.
Yeah.
So every time your dad goes to their house, he was the head of the family. So
Yeah. He
he
was.
sat at the head of the table. And I was sitting to his left. So he was on my right.
Yeah.
And my Um-Ihab was across the table from me. So we start eating, she was serving me. It's like, eat, Slava, let's go, and I looked at Abu-Ihab, and he wasn't eating. We were just sitting there. Because also he ate before he left because he knew she was not a really good cook.
It's too much with this guy. And it's eating.
And he looked at me, and he'll shake his head, basically give me the signal, don't eat that stuff. So I'm trying to oblige and compliment and all that. And that's when your mom blurted out, "Oh, what is this? This is all raw. You did not even get the giblets out." And we were cracking up.
And the thing was, you think about it, the food wasn't horrible. It was good. It was not bad.
Yeah,
it's just
it's
that
not like your mom's food.
Yeah, it's like not my mom cooking, right?
No,
But it's okay though.
Yeah.
I ate the food. It's just that I wasn't I'm not sitting there going, wowed by the food.
Yeah.
But it was, it was good. It wasn't bad. I've eaten some really bad food in my life, but this wasn't like that. So yeah, she was.
She had no filter, but she was very, very charming in her ways. She was very
charming honesty, I would call it.
Very honest. What you see is what you get. Total transparency.
Yeah.
Too much. No filter. But she meant well. She really did, because, I think at that moment at dinner, when she saw that was her instant reaction.
Yeah.
And I don't think anybody would have dared to say that to the hostess, because they're the same age. I think everybody. This reminds me of Christmas Vacation when the turkey comes out.
God. Oh,
yeah. It's all dry and overcooked. Yeah. Everybody's crunching, drinking water, trying to
It wasn't that bad. It wasn't that bad.
No. Try to get beyond the flavors. It wasn't that bad. But in your mom's standards, she was an amazing cook. It was just not acceptable. So she, Allah yarhamika Um-Ihab yahsin ilayki, may you rest in peace. But it's just, she really touched a lot of people's hearts, and she was a big part in a lot of people's lives too. I remember when I lived with them and I started socializing with all, their friends, the impact of her personality and her life and her charm and on their life, it was amazing. It's almost like they were in debt, because of her. And even young women, the kids of her friends, they used to tell me, they said, Tante Ekram, she changed my life. Tante Ekram affected my life. And she used to I used to hear her give them very wise, high quality advice. She used to tell them to finish school first, do not get married right away. Shahadik, your degree is very, very important. Shahadik hatinfa'ak, nothing is going to be is going to serve you better than your degree, just in case things don't work out in life. I remember, when they separate us, the men and the women, just to talk to each other and stuff. I used to hear her talk to them, and I used just to try to be a fly on the wall, just to watch her, how she conducted herself and how she spoke to these young people, and they were mesmerized by her. They were just fascinated, like you think God was talking, because she just had something.
She had presence.
Exactly. The way she carried herself, her persona, her presence, her self-assurance, she commanded attention, and she had presence. I mean, her loud laugh and chuckling, and she had a really good sense of humor. She used to tease the men even, and some of them will blush because أيوة حق إكرام معلش يا حق إكرام. I used to tell her that you're brave, but she she carried herself with such grace. She carried herself with such generosity, kindness, and she carried her heart in her sleeve, and she gave it all to any relationship that she had. She gave it all. She did not hold back at all. Either you have her 100% or you don't have her at all. And even I used to watch her, how she conduct herself within the American culture and society.
Yeah.
Like, she used to pick me up from dental school with the big Cadillac car, and at the train station. We used to go to Wawa in New Jersey to pick up her favorite cappuccino. It was loaded with cream and loaded with sugar. I used to tell her, so bad for you. She goes, that's okay. It's a treat. I'm not going to live forever. So we used to go pick up the coffee from Wawa, and we'll talk, and we'll go run an errand or what have you. So, but when we used to go into these stores, she was so awkward because she had this long trench coat on, her scarf like a babushka, a scarf around like a Russian grandmother around her head, and she used to have her money in a very, very small wallet. I don't know where she hid it, in her pocket. Of course, there's no cell phones back then. And she was to haggle with the guy and argue with the guy about the price. And it's the same price every single time. And she used to haggle just for the sake of haggling. And I said, why do you keep doing this every time we go into Wawa? She goes, you never know. He might be in a good mood and give me a discount one day.
Oh, she used to do the same thing at Macy's. We'd go into like a department store, and she'd start haggling with them, and they're like, well, this is the price. I'm like, Mom, why are you haggling in a department store? If there's a discount, it would tell you 20% off. They're not going to give it to you if it's not there. What was funny was, though, here's something interesting, and this actually is real now, is when you go in and buy jewelry in a store, and there's no discount, you can actually ask for a discount, and they typically will give it to you, because the jeweler marks up the price so high that if you ask for the discount, they still make quite a profit from you. So, with jewelry, she would do that, and they would actually discount it. So, but there's one story as we're coming close to our end of our, this is the one story I wanted to say here, and I don't think we were married yet, Slava. It was right before that, and my Uncle Mohsen, Aunt Sumaya were over our house in New Jersey, and we had dinner and everything, and me and Hamada went out. I don't know if we saw a movie or something, whatever. We left, and we came back, later on that night, and it's like quiet, weird. I mean, where is everybody? And we're looking around, and our parents aren't around. It's like, what? This is really, really odd. And then they, later on, late at night, I can't remember I think we stayed up that night waiting for them. And they came back, and they were at the hospital, the emergency room.
Oh, I was there.
You were there did you go with them?
So they were visiting from Maryland.
Yeah.
And she cooked and cooked and cooked. And then Tante Mirvat and her kids were also just to say hi to everybody. And we ate and everything. She did not feel good. She was very dehydrated. She was in front of the oven all day. You and
we left after dinner. Yeah.
Yeah, you left. We ate and you left. So we sat down. And as you know, your dad is like, finish, where's the tea? I'm like, settle down. We're just going to wash the dishes, sit down, have dessert and tea. So I told her just to go sit down on the couch. And we're watching TV, and Tante Mirvat, I think kids were around her, and Suzanne and stuff. And she had a nosebleed because she's been in front of the stove and the oven all day, literally from 8 o'clock in the morning until they came. And she had a nosebleed, and she goes, oh my God, she panicked, complete panic. So Abir, Tante Mirvat's daughter, she said, it's okay, just, put your head back, pinch your nose, it's okay. She goes, no, she made a big deal. I need to go to the hospital. So we packed everybody up, me, your mom, your dad, Uncle Mohsen, Tante Sumaya, Sarah, Suzanne, Tante Mirvat, Abir, and Rania. So there were 10 people. And we went to the emergency room, and Uncle Mohsen was there, standing at the side of the bed. And the doctor comes in. He goes, "Oh, what's it going?" She goes, "Oh, doctor, I swallowed my brain." And then Uncle Mohsen was standing there. He goes, "Gara eh hagga." It's like, "What's wrong with you? There's no such thing. Stop making stuff up." And she insisted that she swallowed her brain because she felt like she swallowed a blood clot, in the back of her throat. So she goes, "My brain is deteriorating and I swallowed my brain. I'm dying." So we're all cracking up, laughing. The doctor's laughing. All 10 of us were laughing. And she got us in stitches. And she went on, and she didn't like that it was funny. So you guys came home and we were gone.
You wouldn't be here. Yeah, if you swallowed your brain, you wouldn't be here.
But that, just like the whole laundry with your dad and hepatitis C, that's her belief system. She's gonna get contaminated. She's not gonna do and she did not do his laundry until I think he started doing his laundry from that day on until she actually, when she got diagnosed with Alzheimer's and checked into the nursing home, unfortunately. We got to the end of our hour. I hope you guys have enjoyed these stories. And like I said, our culture is very nostalgic culture. It's all about storytelling. And that's how humanity is gonna continue to communicate and exchange ideas and exchange thoughts and exchange experiences, life experiences, of course. So the last thing I would like to ask you, Ihab, if you would describe your mom with one word, what would that be?
Courageous.
Yeah, absolutely.
Courageous, brave, those are the words I would think of for her.
Yes.
But she had that, she was courageous because she was doing things that, you typically wouldn't see in our culture at the time.
Unconventional, absolutely.
Yeah, very unconventional. Yeah, so, she had the courage to do it and break those barriers. And she did.
Yes, she did. She's very successful. Obviously, you are the proof of her hard work and her determination and her perseverance and her strength and her faith in her love for you. And I see it, Ihab, through you every single day. So may she rest in peace. We miss you, Um-Ihab, so much. And we always gonna be living through your stories. And you always never fail to put a smile on our face, honestly. So thank you, Dr. Ihab, for your time today. And as a reminder, these episodes are going to be uploaded on podcast platforms like Spotify and Apple. And they're also available on the Greenwood Dental Partner YouTube channels for you to listen to and watch whenever you could and wherever you are. But also, please don't forget to subscribe, share, and like those episodes in order for us to continue doing the work that we would love to do and we enjoy to do for you guys. And also remember, if you want anything specific for us to discuss or talk about or tell a story about that will help you with your journey and with your process, please leave those in the comments below. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you next time. Bye now.